Hello and welcome to Midlands Today. The headlines tonight: the only protection they had was each other. The words of Susie Evans, whose son, brother and father were killed by a gunman in Tunisia.
This top 5-star hotel was chosen by a terrorist cell because it was the easy target. The coroner at the inquest into the deaths of 30 British tourists condemned the police in Tunisia as shambolic and cowardly. Also tonight, a shocking worsening in standards. The Chief Inspector of Prisons' verdict on Featherston jail near Wolverhampton.
It's disgusting in there. I absolutely hated it now. I couldn't wait to see the back of the place.
The 8-year-old with autism who refuses virtually all food after Birdseye changed their recipe for chicken nuggets.
Found in a field near Leek, I'll be discovering why these 4 items of jewellery are one of the most important Iron Age finds ever discovered in Britain.
And if the snow-capped peaks of Staffordshire don't fill you with the joys of spring, then we're going to be struggling to find you something that will this week. Join me later for a changeable forecast.
Good evening. The only protection they had was each other. That's how Susie Evans describes the last moments of the lives of her son Joel, brother Adrian and dad Patrick as they were gunned down in a hotel in Tunisia. Her youngest son Owen survived the terror attack. Today, the coroner recorded a verdict of unlawful killing at the inquest into the 30 British holidaymakers who died in Zeus in June 2015. The coroner also criticised the Tunisian police, describing their response to the attack by an Islamist militant as at best shambolic and at worst cowardly. Joanne Riddle reports.
Susie Evans and her son Owen from Wednesbury arrived at the Royal Courts of Justice for the last day of the inquests. But, as she said afterwards, their ordeal is far from final.
For many now, going on holiday will never be the same. My family placed their trust in their tour operator to provide them a safe and secure holiday. But it's clear, I believe, that security was not priority.
Owen, the only survivor of the terror attacks which killed his brother Joel Richards, grandfather Pat Evans and uncle Adrian Evans on a holiday to celebrate the end of his GCSEs in June 2015. Sitting beside Cheryl Stollery from Retford, who lost her husband John, Susie described her pain.
People say to me, how do I cope? And I say, well, I'm still a mom and I'm thankful of that I've still got Owen and Owen keeps me alive.
Susie wept in court as the coroner concluded that her son, dad and brother were among 30 Britons unlawfully killed at the hands of Islamic gunman Saifuddin Rezgi. But Judge Nicholas Lorraine Smith rejected a finding of neglect against travel firm TUI and the hotel, which many families had wanted.
They clearly did not put safety before a sale. This top 5-star hotel was chosen by terrorists because it was an easy target.
A lawyer representing 22 of them spoke afterwards.
Following the terrifying events at the Bardo Museum in March 2015, the Tunisian Minister of Tourism issued a letter requiring hotels to improve security measures. Tragically, these steps were not implemented at the Imperial Mahaba Hotel. TUI, the tour operator who organised the holidays for the victims, has stated that it was unaware of the letter from the Ministry of Tourism.
TUI said changes had been made since the attacks.
On that day, the world changed. As an industry, we have adapted and we will need to continue to do so. This terrorist incident left its mark on all of us and its impact will always be remembered.
The coroner described the local police response as at best shambolic, at worst cowardly. It took an hour for Rezgi to be shot dead by police. In a chilling conclusion, the coroner read out the names of each victim alphabetically. Joel Richards and his grandfather Pat Evans shot in the head after fleeing to the indoor pool. His uncle Ade Evans wounded in the neck near to them. Suzanne Davey, a mum of 3 from Tamworth, and her partner Scott Chalkley from Derby, both killed on the beach. Former Birmingham City footballer Dennis Thwaite and his wife Elaine, who later moved to Blackpool, were also shot dead on the beach. For Susie and Owen, their pain continues.
And Joanne Rittles spent the day at the Courts of Justice. I spoke to her a short while ago and began by asking her how the families managed to cope today.
Well, it's been a huge day for the families who've had to listen to horrific accounts of what happened to their loved ones aged from 19 to 80, and they've listened to that over the last 6 weeks. In fact, the coroner today paid tribute to them. He spoke directly to them today, saying, "You have shown quiet dignity of which your loved ones would be extremely proud."
And some families are planning legal action. What happens next?
Well, yeah, 22 of the families, including Susie Evans from Wednesbury, now say they'll sue the tour operator TUI. Their solicitor, Kylie Hutchinson, said it's crucial that the travel industry learn from what happened in Sousse. But TUI maintains there is insufficient evidence of any gross failure. Not all families will sue, though. Connor Fulford, who lost his mum, Suzanne Davey, from Tamworth, posted a message on social media saying that he blamed so-called Islamic State for the terror attacks across the world and not a travel company. Everybody has their own opinion, he said, but that is mine.
Joanne Riddle, thank you. And you can read more about the inquest into the Tunisia attack on the BBC News website. To the day's other news now, inmates at Featherston prison near Wolverhampton are choosing to stay in their cells all day to avoid the violence of other prisoners, according to government inspectors. A report says there has been a shocking worsening in standards at the jail, with levels of violence increasing considerably. They say a shortage of staff and poor leadership are partly to blame. Our reporter Sian Greschek is with me. She has more on this. So how much detail does this report go into about conditions for prisoners, Sian?
Well, Mary, inspectors say that some inmates are living in fear and choosing to stay in their cells 24 hours a day. Now, the abuse some prisoners suffered included other prisoners urinating under their cell doors. The report follows an unannounced inspection back in October, which was held 2 months after inmates started fires during a week of disturbances. Now, the Chief Inspector of Prisons is also very critical of the leadership at the prison.
It describes a prison that is beset with drugs, far too much violence, some prisoners isolating themselves in their cells through fear of other prisoners, and I'm afraid to say a leadership of the prison that has not got a grip on what's happening there.
And Sian, have we heard any accounts of this from inmates?
Yes, we have, Mary. We've been speaking to a former prisoner, Rhys Chisholm, who was an inmate there back in 2016. He was serving time for drug offences and told us he was one of those who feared to leave his cell.
It's a total and utter shambles. The staff in there are unreal. The people are behind the doors, left, right and centre. It's just filthy. It's rats running around in my cell. There was in the duct. It's disgusting in there. I absolutely hated it now. I couldn't wait to see the back of the place, to be quite honest with you.
And the report says the backdrop to the decline at Featherston was clear evidence of poor industrial relations, staff shortages and some significant prisoner unrest. Now, reacting to the report, the Chief Executive of the National Offender Management Service said the government have set out a clear plan for reform in the Prison and Courts Bill laid before Parliament last week, and went on to say that he was confident that the Governor and management team at Featherston can turn things around and achieve the improvements required, Mary.
Sian Greschek, thank you. A group of people from Telford have been sentenced to almost 80 years in prison after they spent days systematically torturing a young man in Woodside. 6 young men, 2 of whom can't be identified, and a young woman all pleaded guilty to causing grievous bodily harm with intent. One defendant also pleaded guilty to false imprisonment. The judge at Stafford Crown Court said they'd all played a part in an appalling campaign of torture, which left the victim with broken ribs, cuts and burns.
This is one of the most serious offences that we've dealt with. The level of the offending and the way in which the offending took place is heinous in nature.
A West Mercia police dog has been removed from her former handler despite a petition calling on the force to let them stay together. Sergeant David Evans had asked to keep 4-year-old Ivy after he recently retired, but the force said Ivy had many years of service ahead of her and is now being passed to another handler. A breast surgeon who worked at hospitals around the Midlands has gone on trial accused of causing grievous bodily harm to patients. 59-year-old Ian Patterson is accused of 20 counts of wounding with intent against 9 women and 1 man between 1997 and 2011. Our health correspondent, Michele Paduano, joins us now from Nottingham Crown Court. Michele, the prosecution opened their case today. What did they say?
Well, they said that this was an outrageous and extraordinary case, and essentially they suggested that Mr. Patterson either invented cancer or exaggerated the symptoms that patients had so that he could perform these operations on them. Why might he do that? Well, one suggestion was they were all private patients and he could make money. But Mr. Joseph Christopher, prosecuting, said that many patients spent many years believing they were ill and having unnecessary operations, and some had serious mental health issues as a result.
Michele, do you have details from specific cases?
It's difficult to pick out a couple, but there was Leanne Joseph, a 25-year-old woman who had her milk ducts removed. This meant that she couldn't actually breastfeed any future children. When she did fall pregnant, Mr. Patterson had actually made a mistake with the operation and she could have breastfed, but he didn't tell her that fact. Then there was the Mr. John Ingram. His mother had died of breast cancer in her 40s, and he was terrified of both breast cancer and the operation and had a panic attack the first time he went for a double mastectomy.
So how will the case proceed tomorrow?
Well, they will continue the case of Frances Perks. There are 3 charges relating to her of removing lumps and a mastectomy. Then they will hear from expert breast surgeons who will back up the case. Mr. Patterson has pleaded not guilty and the case is likely to last 10 weeks.
Michele Paduano, thank you. An 8-year-old boy from Worcestershire who has autism is refusing to eat almost any food after Birdseye changed the recipe of its chicken nuggets. William Stocker from Malvern used to eat 150 nuggets a week, but says he won't eat the new type. His parents are appealing for the company to go back to the original recipe. Tom Turrell has the details.
It's lunchtime in the Stocker household. For Amanda, that means cooking another portion of Birdseye chicken nuggets for her son.
Right, William, here you go. They are your proper nuggets, OK?
William, who's 8 and suffers with autism, has refused to eat anything other than Birdseye's nuggets for the last 5 years, the only exception being cake and jelly. That's why when, last Friday, his parents discovered Birdseye had changed its nugget recipe, they were beside themselves.
It's literally thrown everything up in the air, so now that William will not eat any other type of nugget. So it's become really stressful for both of us. Because obviously we've got a crying child who can't understand why he can't have that nugget that he's been eating for 5 years.
The new nuggets are darker and, I'm told, taste slightly different. William's autism means he can't cope with change. His parents are trying to replicate the old version.
Only things I like on my normal nuggets is just the colour and the shape. When normally a lot of nuggets haven't got the proper stuff inside.
So these are the 2 different types of nugget. This is the old packet and this is the new packet. And they don't look very different from the outside, do they? But to William, they're worlds apart.
His parents have scoured the shops in Herefordshire and Worcestershire to find the old type of Birdseye chicken nuggets, but with no luck. Friends have come to the rescue in the short term by donating the original flavour nuggets, but time is now running out.
We've got enough till tonight. Tomorrow, we haven't got any. So what we're going to do for lunchbox and what we're going to do for dinner, I don't know.
But in the last hour, some good news. Birdseye have got in touch to say they'll provide the Stocker family with a supply of the original nuggets, so William has a bit longer to get used to the change. Tom Turrell, BBC Midlands Today, Malvern.
Thanks for joining us here on Midlands Today. This is our top story tonight. The only protection they had was each other. The words of Susie Evans, whose son, brother and father were killed by a gunman in Tunisia. We'll have your detailed weather forecast to come shortly from Shafali. Also in tonight's programme, the power of the coffee shop generation helping to revive our high streets. And the wheels are in motion for a return of elite women cyclists to the streets of Warwickshire. One of the most important Iron Age finds ever made in Britain. That's how experts have described the discovery of gold jewellery buried in a field in Staffordshire. The items were discovered by two friends who had only recently restarted their metal detecting hobby. Our reporter Ben Sidwell is at the Potteries Museum and Art Gallery where the items will go on display. Ben, what is it about Staffordshire and hidden gold?
I know, 8 years ago we're talking about the Staffordshire hoard, and now we're talking about this. There's 4 items, Iron Age gold, all jewellery, and are believed to be about 1,000 years older, which is why I'm wearing these protective gloves. And as you can imagine, a find like this has caused lots of excitement here in Staffordshire today. It's been buried underground for almost 2,500 years, but this morning the oldest hoard of Iron Age gold ever found in Britain was unveiled at the Potteries Museum in Stoke-on-Trent. Watching on, the two friends from Leek who made the discovery last December while out metal detecting in the Staffordshire moorlands.
When I dug it up, I knew it was gold straight away, you know. I just had that feeling, you know.
Nearly picked myself up off the floor, you know, my legs buckled, my head went all giddy, my stomach turned over. I said, "Where did you find it?" He says, "Come on, I'll show you, the hole's still open."
The pair found another 3 items, and the next day took them to show Teresa Gilmore, Staffordshire's Finds Liaison Officer. It was a moment she'll never forget.
Rummaged in his bag, dug out an old duster, put it on the table, and I went, "You need to see this." He opened it up and I went, "Yes, I do." That's quite a significant find. Well done. Yeah, you wear that this is treasure.
What they'd found were 4 pieces of jewellery dating back to around 400 BC. A find so significant it will change how we think about Iron Age Britain.
What this is telling us is that 2,500 years ago, so before the Roman conquest, people in Staffordshire had contact with communities on the continent somehow. So maybe we need to reframe a little bit how we think all of those connections worked and really think about Staffordshire as being a very important dynamic centre in its own right 2,500 years ago.
Along with archaeologists, Joe and Mark have spent the past 2 months searching the rest of the area near to Leek, and are now sure they found all of the hoard.
It's
very special.
Once in a lifetime, or probably once in 5 lifetimes find, you know. Well, like I say, it's only just sinking in now really with all this today of, you know, how significant the find was.
Today the Staffordshire coroner declared the hoard treasure. It will go on display from tomorrow for 3 weeks at the Potteries Museum before being valued. The reward money will be split between Joe and Mark and the landowner. Well, with me are 2 people that know a lot more about this find than I do. First of all, Stephen Dean, who is the principal archaeologist for Staffordshire County Council. We've got this. We've had the Staffordshire hoard. What on earth is it about this county?
Well, I don't think we have the monopoly on finds like this, to be honest. I think they are to be found elsewhere. I think what we see is this is just such an important find. These catch the public's attention beyond pure specialists. So there's a lot more behind these.
And we've seen these. These are internationally important finds. Are you worried you're going to get a sort of influx of metal detectorists now?
We do worry. I mean, provided that metal detectorists actually follow the code of practice, we can work with them. So yes, provided they report them, the finds to the Portable Antiquities Scheme, I think everything's fine.
Well, let's speak to Deb Klemperer, who is the principal curator here at the Potteries Museum. For you, must be hugely excited, but the big question is, what is going to happen to these? I bet you'd love to keep these.
We would to, yes. So we're going to show them for 3 weeks from tomorrow. They go away to be valued, and then we attempt to raise the money to save them for this region. That's what I very much hope we will do.
And very briefly, are you expecting big queues? You had huge queues for the hoard.
We did, and I hope we will, but who knows? Let's wait and see at 10 o'clock tomorrow what happens.
Well, as we said, they're going to be on show for 3 weeks from tomorrow. You could be the first people. This is the only place you're going to be able to see this new find.
I should think those queues are guaranteed. Ben, thanks very much indeed for that. Now, it's an industry worth around £8 billion a year in the UK, and the Midlands is reaping the benefits of the continuing trend, you may have guessed, coffee shops on our high streets. According to the latest figures, we're turning our backs on pubs and beer and going for cafes and lattes instead. And the coffee culture appears to be growing in some of the most unlikely areas. Our business correspondent Peter Plisner has the details.
Roasting coffee beans in Staffordshire. It's a fine art where timing is everything and the smell is, well, quite amazing. Here they supply to both home consumers and high street coffee shops. According to the company's MD, the retail side is expanding fast.
We're now starting to see, normal people drink coffee. We're starting to see, people that wouldn't not necessarily have known about the country of origin of coffee starting to want that. And as that market broadens, it means it grows.
And here's some of the evidence. This new coffee shop has recently opened in Northfield near Birmingham. Not exactly one of the most affluent areas of the region, but even here, according to the owner, there's an emerging market.
Our bread and butter is retired people who are need to get out of the house in the daytime, and pubs are a bit too much of an event. So a coffee shop's lovely. You can just pop in on the high street, get on your bus, and be on your way.
The coffee business is now worth around £7.9 billion a year, with 55 million cups of coffee drunk every day in the UK. The cafe culture has continued to boom, with 80% of people who visit coffee shops doing so at least once a week. 16% of us visit on a daily basis. There's evidence that coffee shops like this can help boost an area's economy by increasing the number of shoppers who come here. And if there's somewhere for them to stop and have a drink, they'll stay longer, visit more shops and hopefully spend more money. But how much coffee can we drink? Experts are worried about too much expansion.
There is a fear that we're in what you might call a food and beverage bubble, that actually you can push this too far and we'll have one coffee shop too many, and actually that virtuous circle we've got at the moment will begin to work against us the other way.
But there are no signs of that at this Birmingham firm that makes many of the coffee machines that end up in the high street. Here they've doubled the workforce in the last 5 years.
As the coffee companies and the coffee shop chains have grown, so has our business. We've multiplied enormously, particularly since the crash in 2008-2009 when the bank problem arose. We haven't seen any negativity in growth at all since that period.
So clearly a frothy market that, despite continued economic worries, is still steaming ahead. Peter Plisner, BBC Midlands Today.
Some news of some postponed football matches tonight. In League One, Port Vale's away fixture against Rochdale is off because of a waterlogged pitch, as is Walsall's match against Chesterfield. And in the Vanarama National League, Solihull Moors game against Torquay United being postponed, again because of the weather. Now, cycling fans are in for a treat when the Women's Tour returns to Britain in June. More than 100 of the world's top riders from 22 countries will be racing through Warwickshire, and that will be very familiar territory for Ciara Horn from Kenilworth. Ian Winter has the details.
She's one of Britain's best on a racing bike, and Ciara Horn has a personal motto: happy head, fast legs. But last summer in Rio, Ciara was far from happy. She was devastated to be left out of the women's team pursuit, who went on to win the Olympic gold medal. How long did it take you to get over the disappointments of Rio?
It was very, very difficult for a good few months, but I think someone said to me, create your own story, and that kind of just suddenly made me think, yeah, you're right, and I'm 100% going to go for Tokyo.
But Tokyo is 3 years away, whilst there's only 3 months to wait for the Women's Tour, and the Warwickshire stage from Featherston to Leamington on June the 9th.
It's the toughest. The International Cycling Union have just changed the regulations to allow them to race up to 150 kilometres. So they're going to be racing over 100 miles over very hilly terrain, and finishing in Royal Leamington Spa is the dream ticket.
This is an absolute brute.
There's very, very few parts which are actually flat terrain, so it's going to be very, very challenging, but I'm sure the women are going to handle it incredibly well and embrace it.
The Women's Tour is now in its 4th year, and it's enjoying a huge surge in popularity, thanks partly to the outstanding success of Team GB. Last June, Stratford-upon-Avon was the final destination on the Warwickshire stage, and that's got a lot of good memories for Hannah Payton from Stourbridge. She's studying to become a physiotherapist at the University of Birmingham, whilst also competing in international events like the Women's Tour.
Everybody says that the Women's Tour in the UK is the most spectacular and has the best atmosphere, so it makes us really proud to be part of it.
The Women's Tour also wants to encourage more girls to play sport, and that's why Ciara and Hannah are such important role models for any aspiring young athlete. Ian Winter, BBC Midlands Today, at the University of Warwick.
Really looking forward to seeing the women's tour in Warwickshire in June. Now, this has been going a bit longer, a tradition that's been going for more than 800 years. Lots of people gathered in Featherston to take part in the annual ball game, which is a Shrove Tuesday ritual. Residents fight over the ball. One of them has to be the last one holding it when the horn sounds.
What a fantastic thing to celebrate. Every year, Shrove Tuesday, we're about one of two towns that actually do the Shrove Tuesday ball game. And what an event, the whole town's alive, ready for action.
Bizarre. Some very wintry showers around today. I think it's supposed to be the last day of winter in weather terms anyway.
It is, yes, according to the meteorologist, that is. But no sign of spring, certainly from our weather watchers' perspective, apart from the blue skies and sparkling sunshine that we had mainly across central and southern parts during this morning. And that's before the rain and the showers began to pile in once again during the course of the morning and into the afternoon. But we had quite a bit of lying snow across the northern half of the region here at Staffordshire and also in Shropshire. But it did look quite pretty, although wintry, as we head into March and the start of the meteorological spring, which is tomorrow. This, however, was the range of temperatures we had across the region. The coldest spot was indeed Leek in Staffordshire across the north, and then we had highs of around 8 Celsius there in the south. But we still got some showers toppling in from the northwest through this evening and during the first part of tonight, but they will gradually die away, and there could be a wintry mix in some of these once again. But during the early hours, clearer skies, drier conditions, and temperatures will dip to around 2 to 3 Celsius and nearing freezing in the countryside. So here we could get an ice risk once again into the morning tomorrow, but this time without warnings, and we could get some frost as well. So that's how we start the day, on a clear, fairly sunny note. Quite chilly as well, but just a flurry of light showers there to the north of the region. But it's the north that will hold on to the best of any brightness and dry weather during the course of the day. It's a north-south split. We've got some clouds starting to edge in from the south during the course of the morning into the afternoon, and that will bring light outbreaks of rain to southern and western parts of the region. Top temperatures around 8 to 9 Celsius, with light to moderate winds during much of the day. But this is the frontal system that's bringing in that cloud and that rain, and you can see the isobars tighten towards the south of the country, and those stronger winds will eventually reach us during the course of tomorrow evening and night. So quite a wet start to the night tomorrow, with some heavy bouts of rain, again some cold air undercutting it, with some snow on the cards as well.
Doesn't look very spring-like. Thanks, Shivali. Now, join us tomorrow for a special behind-the-scenes look at Royal Shakespeare Company's latest production of Antony and Cleopatra, which has enlisted the musical talents of Birmingham singer-songwriter Laura Mvula. She's been added to the RSC's distinguished list of composers, and we've been invited to watch Laura rehearse with the musicians. That's on the programme tomorrow at 6:30, but that's all from us for the moment. I'll be back with your late news with Shafali at 10:30. Hope you can join us for that. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.